Hey, what's up? My name is Nico. Welcome to my chat. I'm not gonna. Oh man. Ugh. Here's the interview.
What up, what up? I'm not going to ask for any sort of elevator pitch here. I already know what this plugin is. What is the weirdest thing that you've encountered so far that people have used this for? Something that just like made you go, I didn't think that that's how it was going to get used.
Well, since it's still in beta, there hasn't been that many users yet. Maybe just, I guess, really compressing the shit out of the low end. Just really blasting that with the squash mode. Just using that compression to maybe like 808 and kicks, like actually affecting that. I've seen some crazy examples of that from our beta testers, and that's been pretty cool.
So are they using like the sort of distortion that the plugin naturally kind of it gets out when you start to really squash it? Are they using the amount knob, or are they using like the input sense? Are they actually driving it with input?
So there isn't actually any distortion happening in Bloom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we dabbled with that in the first versions of it, but now in this, we just understood that one of the main reasons that we made Bloom was, okay, it was 3 questions, like what is warmth, what is presence, and how do we get overtones from a signal without introducing more overtones? And so there's no saturation happening, and there's no like distortion being made. So I guess
okay.
So that's also why it sounds so different when you're pushing it in the low end with this frequency-dependent compression that it's doing when it's in squash mode.
So you're saying that you had some sort of algorithm in it that was doing some sort of overdrive, some sort of saturation, but now it's doing more like a different form of that.
Yeah, exactly. So in the prototypes, we had something with some distortion elements in it. But as soon as we go down that road, you start to talk about color, and then people have different tastes and different colors. And if we go there, and if we start introducing distortion, we need to actually think it through. What kind of choices do we give the user? Because everybody wants a different distortion. So we can't just like put one in.
Right. Okay, so what about your favorite? Like if you have to really quickly show somebody like, this is my favorite way of using this plugin, what's that personally for you?
Yeah, so I do a lot of songwriting sessions. 2 things especially. So there's a lot of SM7 vocals that we're, of course, like need to like save.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so here it is on SM7. So just look at what it's doing there.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so it's a lot of dipping and boosting, and just like, that.
Yeah, that's classic.
Of course, with this curve, but even on the factory default, I think we can actually look at, this is like an SM7 vocal preset.
Oh, so it's a custom made for SM7, like this preset.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's still gonna be different depending on the voice, but that's where Bloom shines because it reacts on the incoming signal. So that's why presets are so useful here. You don't need as many presets in Bloom because it still understands what's coming through it. Yeah, and then the other way I use it is, of course, on a full mix. Because of Songwriter, we need to get the demo out fast the same day.
Yeah.
So you put it on the master, and then you just do a lot of mid-side, just making it hit where you want it to hit.
Yeah, that's going to be huge for me. Back in the day, we used to look for stuff like OTT on like low mix mode, like in order to get a quick response out of something, even just to test out, like, I wonder what this would sound like if it's a little more squashed, a little bit more, top end and all that. But with OTT, you get all this other artifacts and all this and like that extra stuff that comes through when you're like, really pushing it.
OTT still has its place in many.
Yeah, sure.
It's very different because it doesn't have that like saturation that other exciters might introduce. So it's very, very considerate of the incoming signal. Yeah. And like, so here, for example, the settings I have going on here would be something similar to just pushing something exciting in over the top. So just having that high end and then just going hard and then mixing it back and applying just a small amount, and then suddenly you have like an exciter.
So is there like a least understood feature that is often missed or something like that? When we were first looking at this plugin, like in the early alpha stages, your guys' ethos was sort of like, we're trying to keep it minimal, but as you guys went further and further, you started implementing more and more features, which honestly, I like every single one of the features that you guys added, honestly. I think they're all really handy and great. But is there anything that is like not so obvious, like when you're first looking at it, it's like you have to maybe play with it for a while until you really discover it's like, aha, this is like actually kind of crucial for my workflow?
Yeah, a few things. I mean, all the parameters we've tried and make the user experience as clear as possible, of course. And I think we've managed really, really well there. In my personal opinion, I think it's really easy to understand, even though it's a very complex process. Now, under the hood, what I think most people, when they look at it or just see a screenshot, they think that it's like might be a dynamic EQ or like a multiband something, but it's not a multi-band anything. It's actually looking at the whole signal and applying this one curve to the signal. And that curve, another thing that people might misunderstand, that curve is not static. Right. So it's not trying to shape it towards a curve that is static. That curve, so the target curve, if you can even call it that, is also changing constantly according to the incoming signal and according to the perceived balance. As a parameter, maybe, I mean, the focus, if you don't hover your mouse over it, you might not understand that focus is the amount for mid or for side. But
oh yeah, that's actually something I missed. So what is that?
So yeah, the amount I have here, and because I'm in mid-side mode, like that, when I get that, I can unlink them, of course. That's the same as in Soothe. But then this, of course, is the weight. The weight I want the amount to have on the mid or on the side. So now I have 8.2 on, now I have 8.1 on both sides. Now I have 8.1 on the mid, I have 0 on the side, right? Now I have 50% on that on the side. And I can go full side. Now I only have amount on the side channel. Now I only have amount on the mid channel.
That's actually a perfect answer to my question because I personally missed that. I think I just only have one question for you. I'm just curious about the name. Like, is there any like story for why that came about, or who came up with that, or like what's the deal with that?
Oh my God, we were talking about name forever, like in the company. Everybody had an opinion, which is of course great. That's how it should be. Actually, Titan was a play on how it was just somebody that said. I think it might have been Tommy that just misheard when somebody says like, "Oh, it tightens up the sound," so we should call it
like Titan.
Yeah, as in titanium Titan. But so that's stuck for the like the work name.
That's funny. Okay, I get it.
We always have work names for our plugins that are not the final names because we don't want to like start thinking about it until we know what it does. And then when it's kind of like it turned out that we knew what it was going to do, we were starting to look for a word that would fit the end result of the sound, similar to soothe. It soothes the sound. And when you put blue on something, hopefully you'll feel that it makes the sound blue, right? And it's a very, very beautiful word, in my opinion. And also, it fits with the color and everything that we've gone for.
Ultimately, like it almost like forces you to do what everybody always tells you to do in music, which is listen. Even though this plugin has all these parameters that are really crazy and cool and you can get really technical with it, at the end of the day, if you use it correctly, it could make it bloom, you know, it could do like musical things that want your ears to hear. It's not like that's the end result, and I honestly think that's an ethos to your guys' company that is such just a constant thread through Spiff and Soothe, and it feels like here, again, you guys really did a great job of just keeping the musicality there. Like, as for me, when I'm using plugins, that's like the number one thing that I'm always looking for and listening to. Yeah. It's like, does it do the thing that I instinctively want it to do without me having to think about it, without me having a PhD? And again, you guys have always been doing that, and you guys have done it here.
And I love what you said about just making the person actually use their ears and listening. As you can see on the actual interface, you don't say decibel anywhere.
Right.
Trim is decibel. This. We can't say what the average reduction or we can't say what the reduction is
because it's all constantly changing.
Constantly changing, and it's different for the whole frequency spectrum. We can't give you a decibel number. These are not decibel numbers because you're not affecting it in decibels. You're actually pushing the algorithm to skew towards a frequency position. This graph, how much is boosting or how much is cutting, we're not giving you a decibel because you should use your ears.
You guys are basically, you almost designed, almost intuitively designed a plugin that forces you to think and listen.
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, we did, of course, a lot of prototyping to make these decisions. So we actually had testers go through with different interfaces and actually showing decibels and stuff like that. And what we noticed is they were making a lot poorer decisions when we gave them like the nitty-gritty information like that. When this is more, put it on, does it sound good? You're good.
Yeah. Perfect. I love that. Well, 100%.
Thank you.
Best plugin of 2024. Let's go. Let's get in there. Let's get in there.
All right, that was the interview. Hope you enjoyed that. Some of my key takeaways from that were, number one, the fact that there was no real saturation involved. I did beta testing for this, and I was in the process ever since it was in the alpha stage. And I was a little bit surprised by that because I remember using it earlier, and it definitely could cause some overdrive type qualities. And recently when I was trying that, I think just earlier today, I couldn't get that same result out of it. So I'm going to have to experiment with that a little bit more and see where it goes. I'm definitely going to do an actual breakdown video of the plugin itself, like more extensively once it comes out officially. So I guess stay tuned for that. So number two, a massively cool part about this plugin is what Hannes was talking about with the presets. I'm going to go ahead and call them adaptive presets because that's kind of ultimately what they are to me. They're presets that adapt to whatever input you're giving them because the underlying algorithm is there constantly working and adapting to whatever sound you're throwing it. I mean, presets are always semi-problematic for a lot of things because you ultimately have no idea what sort of audio the preset was created on. So if you apply, like, let's say a pop vocal curve from Serban Guinea or somebody and expect it to just magically create a perfect vocal sound for you, you're gonna be in for a surprise. Like, the curve for Ariana Grande won't be the same as for anybody else, like Ed Sheeran or something. And it won't even be the same for her, not only from song to song, but section to section within a song. Because oftentimes you might want different types of EQ curves between verse, pre-chorus, and chorus just to give it more or less energy, or depending on what's happening in the rest of the mix. So to be able to potentially have some presets that are general enough to get you close, and then with Bloom's underlying tone shaper algorithm, you can sort of customize any preset to work potentially much closer to your own sounds. So that's very cool. And finally, number three, for me, I love the idea that the plugin doesn't have any mention of decibels. And like we talked about, it sort of forces you to more intuitively shape sounds and to rely on your ears. It takes a little bit of getting used to. Once you get the hang of it, it starts to feel really intuitive and fun. And I personally really enjoy pushing the limits of like a plugin like this to really try to break the plugin down, basically, and just to try to use it for sound design purposes and to get interesting results. And so not having a decibel there to kind of like trigger my analytical part and just forcing me to sort of have these discovery moments where I'm just kind of twisting knobs and trying stuff out until I get some result that sounds good, even though it's like completely wrong, you know what I mean? Overall, I think Bloom is just a really great addition to the Oeksound plugin collection, honestly. It's not Soothe, it's not Spiff, and even though it shares some underlying similarities with both, it's not the same. If Soothe is made to, tame harsh frequencies mostly, and Spiff is there to kind of add or subtract transients, like a transient shaper or like a transient designer, Bloom sort of is a tool that lets you, like Oek themselves say, and like Hannes was talking about, it's like a tone shaper, like a sound shaper. So it's really a tool that lets you shape sounds, a slightly more unconventional way than maybe your traditional multiband dynamic tools. Obviously, there are these sort of Swiss Army knife tools out there, but Bloom is pretty unique, in my opinion. So it's not something that you can easily replicate with some other plugin. I don't think, at least I haven't run into anything like that. It's always refreshing to see unique takes on sort of traditional concepts. The creme de la creme to all of this, honestly, well, I don't know, this is a cherry on top part, but is the fact that Oek is a Finnish company, and I am from Finland as well. So that just makes all this so much better. So anyway, thanks for listening, and go check out Bloom when it comes out.